Mental health.
Oh.
Oh,
Hey.
we started, yeah.
Hey, everybody.
Hey,
Welcome.
everybody, Happy New Year.
Happy 2020. We're excited to be here. We made it through this is now the third decade of our lives.
Feeling kind of nervous today. We haven't recorded in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. So if we throw in any old-timey sayings, that's just the nerves. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Anywho,
mental health.
welcome back to the Environmental Podcast.
Yes, today's topic
Is, as Aaron has shouted,
screamed twice.
mental health and how it relates to a lot of things.
Yes.
Yeah, so how was your break, Aaron?
It was fun. It was fun family times, fun family Christmas times, very festive. I'm kind of blanking right now. How was yours?
Mine was good. I was going to ask you what your highlight was, but I'll start with my highlight.
Okay.
We have a tradition of going to a maple syrup farm, and it depends on the year exactly what we do, but we always go for a hike and eat pancakes with maple syrup. It was wonderful.
And did you do that this year?
Yes, we did. Yeah, it was great. They have this maple syrup coffee, so it's just regular coffee, but they have whipped cream with maple sugar and stuff. I just dream about it all year. So it's always good to get to go there. And the trails are really gorgeous. I was excited to go hiking, but a lot of the people we were with didn't. Even though we go every year, they're always like, oh, I forgot to dress for the hike. And they're wearing dress boots or sneakers. And it's like, guys.
Wow.
These are gorgeous
You're calling
trails.
them out over the podcast.
Yeah, I'd call you out by name, but you know who you are.
Did you tap any trees?
No, it's not the season.
Have you ever tapped any maple trees?
Yes, we used to live in the woods, and we bought taps after going to the maple syrup farm because it's open year round. So sometimes it's just you just go to eat and hike, but sometimes you go and you actually gather the syrup. But yeah, we once tapped trees at home. I don't know that they were even maple trees because we were kids and we were just like, this seems like a maple tree. Probably wasn't.
Actually, just a cactus. You're just taking the sap.
Yeah.
But you know what? I feel like that would be a really cathartic exercise. Kind of feel like that would be really good for your mental health.
You're right. Connecting with the source of your food is always good.
Do you know what my highlight of my break was?
What?
Christmas morning, opening my presents.
Ooh.
I got some books. I got some socks.
That's awesome.
It was fun. I got some gloves.
I haven't seen the gloves.
No.
Those will be nice. You'll probably feel like an astronaut, which is always good.
Okay.
Anyways, let's just jump right into it. We're not exactly sure where to start with this topic.
Mental health is such a big topic.
Yes.
But this is the topic which kind of is the root of why we wanted to start a podcast.
Yeah, it's the root of pretty much everything, we think, because every conversation we have, be it about society, the environment,
people,
education,
ourselves,
it always comes back to kind of the current state of society's mental health.
Yes. We're in a really good place to judge that.
Yeah, I guess. Because I feel like we're in this group of people who are we can experience the younger generation, the older generation, look around at everything, and we can kind of...
We're very inquisitive.
Yes.
Sure. So shall we outline the three big...
The keys to the mental
health puzzle.
Yes.
Really.
These are three keys that we identified, and we're not saying that these are the only three.
The three, but since it's such a big topic, we just pretty much picked the first three which came to mind. Mm-hmm. Because we'll probably have a sequel episode somewhere down the line.
Yeah.
Maybe next week. We're not sure yet. But the three that we were thinking of as big, important issues to address when it comes to the modern mind are...
Number one is technology.
Yeah, number two is the built environment / processes and structures in place which reinforce specific good or bad mental health.
And number three is speed.
Speed, acceleration, the crazy, rapid time of development that we live in.
Yes. So speed will probably hit on last because
yes.
It it's the most interesting, but it underlies everything else. You're
yes.
right. Cool. So technology, we've talked about technology before.
Yeah. I feel like this is the one of the three which gets talked about the most, because if you mention mental health, 9 times out of 10, the person who you're talking to will be like, oh, well, yeah, social media.
Yeah,
It's
social
terrible.
media, people aren't talking face to face anymore. So, of course, they're going to be less able to deal with these feelings that crop up. And technology, well, all three of them really have to do with, I feel like, the developed, like post-development, like, what's that called?
Post-industrialization?
Post-industrialization, but there's, like, developing, developed, and then there's that, like, third tier.
Oh, of countries.
Of countries.
So you're talking about, like, the classification of
yeah.
countries
Or
and
it's
their
like,
technology. And
yeah,
their
so it's like you reach the point where there's, like, not very much illness. So, like, the issues start to be, like, issues of affluence.
Oh, yes.
You know what I mean?
So basically the scientific word for first world problems?
Yeah.
Kind of?
That's what I'm trying to find, but I can't
Yeah.
find it. But I feel like that has a lot to do with it. And it's not like people in developing countries aren't dealing with mental health, like...
Oh, you mean the hierarchy of needs,
concepts.
kind of?
Yeah, that's what I'm looking
because
for.
people in developing countries, more of their effort and more of their concern goes into, this is a big sweeping generalization,
Yes.
but it could go into staying healthy, finding food,
Mm-hmm.
finding shelter, staying safe.
Yeah.
So less of their thought goes into existential, why am I here? I feel lonely, maybe things like that is what
Yeah.
you're saying. Yeah.
And I feel like technology just really enables that because everything's so convenient to access food, access information. So it's just like you start intaking all these things and you're like, but why am I here? Like, do I have a purpose? I feel like that technology really feeds into that and maybe deteriorates it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So you're just saying it increases self-awareness, which is not necessarily good.
Correct.
It's a negative kind of self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's a lot of clinical psychologists will say that, not as the only remedy, but like a pretty somewhat proven cure to epidemic sadness or depression or something like that is to try. I mean, it's obviously not as easy. It's easier said than done, but to try and occupy yourself with something, try and do something, try and think of something else. So you're saying that because of technology, we spend too much time thinking about ourselves? Thinking inward, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and it's also easy to say you're like feeling really down to just surround yourself with sad movies, sad music, sad news. But I feel like in other times or other places that wasn't as easy. It's like if you're sad, you have to focus on the task at hand, at finding food, so it gets your mind off it easier.
Yes.
Than here you're allowed to just kind of like
Yes.
compile the sadness or
So, I mean, that's kind of like built environment and structures, is what
Mhm.
you're saying, because we live in a time which creates and enables depression, introversion, sadness, loneliness, isolation, all those
Yes.
things.
And we realize that it's like a imbalance of chemicals, that it's not like it's just like
All right, let's
you're
talk
really
about that.
sad.
Let's talk about the medical aspect of it, because right now it
Yes.
sounds like we are saying to depressed people, just be happy,
Yeah,
kind of, or like
that's
just
not-
do something
that's not
else.
what
It's not what
we're
we're saying, because there are legitimate chemical imbalances which are
Yeah.
diagnosable as depression, bipolar, schizophrenia,
Mhm.
something else. You know, all those kind of
Yes.
disorders. Do you want to talk about diagnosis and maybe like a common misunderstanding
Yeah,
of this
just from
process?
like our own like not our personal experience, but just our experience as humans and
Our own opinions.
our own opinions. We often see people who like just in like every day-to-day life, people think being happy all the time is like if you're not happy all the time, then, and I think the internet really makes this
Social
seem
media.
right. Yeah, it's like, well, they're happy all the time. Why do I have sad days? Why do I have bad days? Why
That's
do
true.
I have
And it leads a lot of
anxiety?
people to think that they have a capital letter diagnosis
Yeah.
disorder when in fact they might just be living a pretty normal mix of sad and happy days.
Yeah, because if you watch Inside Out, you have emotions. Like, you're going to feel anger. You're going to feel all these different things. And I think it's easy. Well, it's not easy for the people who are trying to diagnose these things. 'Cause if you come
Of
in
course.
and you say, if you've looked up the list of symptoms,
And you say,
And you
well,
feel
I'm
them all.
sad all day. You know, I feel tired. I feel fatigued.
yeah. So it's like
I have
impossible
mood
to really,
swings.
distinguish what's genuinely like,
A mental illness, a chemical imbalance,
versus just,
symptoms which look a lot like it.
like what's poor mental health. Because I think there is a difference. I'm not an expert,
Yeah.
but I feel like,
I think what we're saying is that people are overdiagnosed.
Yes.
especially young people, because that's what we noticed a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's, you'll see statistics. It's like, well, did you know that this many teenagers have a diagnosable mental health or mental illness?
Yes.
It's like, of course they do, because diagnosing a mental illness, I mean, teenagers and adolescents in general struggle with things like new emotions,
Mm-hmm.
more complex understandings of the world, more responsibility, growing up, all those kind of issues.
Mm-hmm.
And it will manifest in ways which will, of course, it will look a lot like depression or bipolar or whatever it may be. But I always wonder, like, if those symptoms are just an effect of one's age or one's situation, does that mean that person has the mental illness?
I don't know.
I don't think it does, though.
Yeah, it's hard to say.
So that's like the young person, like the teenager example. Let's take, this is going off into hypotheticals, but let's take the example of someone who's like grieving over a family member who just died.
Yeah, that's...
And they're incredibly sad.
Mm-hmm.
Are they diagnosed with depression?
I believe so.
See, I don't know about that.
No, but I'm pretty sure it's very... those are the things that kick off the imbalances. Is like a genuine, like, an event based on what I've seen. What I think with the overdiagnosis topic is what we're focusing on is people will begin to like identify with them because people are like looking for an identity.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that's what the intention of a diagnosis is. Be it, it's just like they're just growing up and they're saying, okay, you have this. People will like kind of just, I feel like they hold on to it.
Yeah, especially young people.
Yeah.
I think that too, because young people are so desperate to stand out and to find themselves.
Mm-hmm. And because not many people are like religious or have like a really specific group to identify with anymore, it's easy to be like, oh, so like this is what I have. I have depression.
Yeah, you're jumping ahead. You're jumping ahead. We'll talk about this later.
Okay.
But yeah, you're saying they find solace and identity in the mental illness.
Yeah,
sometimes.
Which makes it harder to overcome. Be it like a genuine, like you're diagnosed with this, I feel like it's harder to overcome if it becomes a part of your identity. And I feel like that's what we were getting at.
You know, it's a concise way of saying that.
What?
The diagnosis becomes the prescription.
There we go. So.
Clever.
It is clever. You're a clever guy.
Anyway, technology.
Yes.
We have here listed escapism, isolation, and that browsing the internet makes people feel like they're living full lives in our episode notes.
Yeah. So I feel like that last one, being like, I feel like I'm living a full life. I'm shopping. I'm interacting with all these people. I feel like that contributes to poor mental health because when you have to go out and face the world in real life, it's kind of like, oh, I'm not fulfilled, and then it just makes people feel bad.
I was thinking about it. You mentioned shopping and
interacting with people online.
But I was thinking more like you see images of your friend on vacation in Bermuda and your brain thinks, cool, I just went to Bermuda.
Yeah.
Like that, because people say the brain can't really differentiate between what's real and what isn't really if you're experiencing the image.
Oh yeah.
Which is why they say like visualization is such a strong tool, and we're kind of inadvertently visualizing a whole bunch of things when we are browsing the internet carelessly.
Yes.
Because most people browse not very consciously. I do anyway.
Yeah, makes sense. That's an interesting way to think about it. And if you're trying to
and that's why people I feel like usually if you were to be sitting not doing anything for let's say 2 hours, you'd get incredibly bored and restless. But if you're sitting in the same position and just like thoughtlessly scrolling through your Instagram feed or something, you're so immersed in it and it makes you feel like you're in Bermuda with your friend and you're cooking that recipe with Gordon Ramsay or whoever. So it really makes you think that you are
so it kind of makes people
satiated.
That's the word.
Yes.
So they're less likely to actually go and do something productive.
That's how I've always experienced it anyway.
Yeah, that's really true. I'll sometimes, if I'm feeling creative and I'm like, oh, I want to go cook or draw or something, I'll spend 20-30 minutes just looking at recipes, and it's just pick one and then go do it instead of looking oh, this looks good, and watching a video on it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I see what you mean. That's interesting to think about, maybe to become more conscious of it if you are
That's
being
when
like, I don't have enough time to do anything.
That's when I realized I was spending a little bit too much time on YouTube, because let's say whatever one's hobbies may be, we always have to ask ourselves, am I spending more time engaging with the hobby or engaging with
media about the hobby?
Yeah, media or representations of the hobby.
Yes.
Excuse me. Things like books, video games. It's like, are we reading, or movies? Are we reading, playing, watching these things, or are we concerned more with the narrative around them and the backstory and that kind of thing?
I know sports are a little different, but like I was never really into watching sports, so I was always so confused when when this guy would be like, yeah, I'm really into baseball, and I was like, you don't play baseball. How are you into baseball? Like I know it's different,
let's have
but
that
I feel like it's to me I was always confused. I'm like, you've never touched a bat?
Let's have that debate.
Okay.
I don't know. I feel like people can be. So you're saying you take it with a grain of salt if someone says they're a fan of something if they don't do it. What about like movie critics? They don't make the movies.
Yeah. I would trust a critic who made movies more than...
Yeah, of course. Well, we just watched Moneyball yesterday.
Yes.
I had to figure out a way to say this on the podcast. We watched Moneyball yesterday, and Brad Pitt, he keeps saying in it, I know baseball because I played baseball.
Yeah, none of the other guys, the general managers, had played baseball.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Great movie.
Yeah, it was a good movie. It wasn't what I expected. It wasn't, you had watched it already, and you were like...
But I didn't remember how many scenes Brad Pitt was eating, spitting out seeds or things, or throwing things. Yes. Like those are his 3 acting decisions in this. They were
decisions. He made them. Where were we? Oh, yes.
Mental health.
And
Moneyball.
What I was getting at with the sports thing is like, okay, I understand that. Like, you can be into sports. But I could see it getting into people being like, yeah, I'm into video games. Yeah, I'm into books. But they've never read a book. You know what I mean?
Never read a book?
Like, not super reason, but like, you know what I mean? Like, someone could, in the future, they could be like, oh yeah, I'm really into travel. Yeah, I'm really into something, and they don't do it because they can think they do it.
Oh yes, exactly.
So I feel like if you watch football all the time, you're like, yeah.
That's the sad thing about
my homie Messi. You know, it's probably not the same, but I feel like it could get to a weird level.
True.
Yes. We also have isolation, which I think is a massive.
Yeah, it's also the one that's probably the least complex.
Yeah.
Just like people headphones in.
Yeah.
Lacking social contact.
Mm-hmm.
Especially lacking real social structures and supports in which we are key members of.
Yeah, so it's like if you're experiencing something that's like, I feel like even like 30 years ago, if you were experiencing depression, you could go to your group of friends and be like, guys, I'm feeling this, and be like, oh, that's not good. Like, we'll help you. We'll get you the supports you need.
Support systems.
Yeah. So that's just technology enables that to not be in place.
Yeah, because I don't need to look at the statistics, but I can kind of know that people's friends have gone down. Like the amount of friends that the average adult has probably gone down since the advent of since the last 25 years.
Yeah.
The amount of people who know their neighbors' names has gone down, just like communities like that.
Yeah.
Especially among men.
Yeah, I can understand.
You always hear about that, like men have much smaller social support systems, and that's one of the reasons why male suicide is higher.
Mm-hmm.
Why do we think that is?
I think it's still a very commonly held belief that men aren't supposed to express their emotions.
Yes.
But they're now experiencing more because they're exposed to more. Like, I can't imagine not having anybody to talk to about the news or about like the fact that I feel lonely, because they don't express it.
You can talk to us on the podcast. How do you feel?
I feel really good. I mean, if you were struggling. If I was struggling, and I feel like because the friends are going down, and then at the same time, maybe they in the past would have had a group of like 4 guys that they went to the game with every weekend. Like if they're really having a hard time, they might be able to say, "Hey guys, having a hard time." But now it's like the friends aren't there. On top of that, it's being kind of reinforced that they have to hold on to their like stereotypically masculine trait of being independent and non-expressive, because they're kind of digging their heels in as people are like, no, all of masculinity is bad. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you got it there as this kind of internal conflict maybe in a lot of men where, as you said, they are not expected to cry.
Yeah.
Or, you know, not expected to express themselves in such vulnerable ways.
Yes.
But at the same time, the traditionally masculine traits are being kind of systemically attacked.
Yeah. I didn't know what you mean. It's hard. I'm trying to figure out how to express it.
It's a huge topic, so maybe once we have more time to prepare for it and read a little bit more into it, we'll have an episode on modern masculinity, femininity, because I think it's kind of key to this mental health whole conversation. And
Yeah.
it's often overlooked.
Yes, I agree.
Maybe we'll mention it in the speed section.
Yeah.
We were talking about it yesterday a little bit, but I
We'll
think a whole conversation to flesh that out would be better.
Yes.
Escapism.
People can ignore how they're currently feeling pretty easily.
Yeah. Talking even from like a personal development standpoint, if someone's struggling socially, it's too easy to say, oh, being around people makes me feel uncomfortable. It's too easy to stay in our comfort zones. Yeah.
I feel like people know about that.
Yeah, people talk about that all the time.
Yeah.
Shall we move on?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
The built environment. So what we mean by that is kind of how everything we do enables poor mental health.
We should circle back to the medical aspect of this.
Okay.
I just want to mention something. Because mental health and mental illness are like really important terms, but I think they're kind of used as buzzwords a lot.
Yes.
So we should say what our own thoughts about the macro conversation of mental health and mental illness. How should this change? Or do we think it's all good? How people talk about it, its representation.
I think it's changing for the better. For a little bit there was like very focused on mental illness, which is just like the different categories that one can fit into.
Yes.
But now it's kind of shifted towards like everybody has mental health.
Yes.
Which I
agree.
think is really important to physical health, because sometimes I'll like get into this state of just like I just like can't focus on anything. I'm really foggy, and then I realize it's a reflection, like my mental state is a reflection of my physical state. Like,
well, yeah, it's when people say like, oh, I feel so depressed, you know, I can't do this, I can't do that. And it's like, when you look at the diet, it's really bad.
Yeah.
You know, they don't eat a lot of nutritious stuff. They don't get good sleep. They don't drink a lot of water. It's like, well, how do you expect to feel mentally?
Yeah. But people don't know that. They'll...
It's a basic understanding of physiology and that kind of thing, which is lacking. I agree.
So I think that's
in
great.
The education episode we'll talk about, because from a young age, I think this is a serious issue.
Yeah. So that's kind of my thoughts, that I like the focus on mental health and it's linked to physical health. And I think there should be a more distinct separation between like diagnosable mental illnesses and just
a
mental
baseline
state.
Work on
telling people, hey, being sad is normal.
A baseline focus on mental health.
Yes.
I agree. And you were saying that the focus is shifting to mental health rather than to mental illness, which I agree with.
Yes.
Cool.
So the built environment, what I was really thinking of is that we're not outside much. We're not connected to our work. People don't exercise as much. And that brought us to gyms when we were talking about the built environment.
Yeah, and I was listening to this personal trainer talk about it. He was hiking, and he said, when you think about it, gyms are really silly because we have sterilized our day-to-day lives so much that we need to build specific rooms to lift heavy things.
And to get our heart rates up.
Yeah, to get our heart rates up.
Yep. So that's kind of what we were thinking of. It's like you can't, like in your day-to-day life, you can't get your heart rate super high just like doing the things that we normally are expected to do. Wake up, go to work, cook.
It's kind of like the people in WALL-E.
Yeah, except for the physique, pretty much.
Except for the people in WALL-E are just driven around the space station thing in their little wheelchairs and just always watching TV and eating fast food.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like that in everything but appearance, I think.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's easy to... I say that and it sounds so mean, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's not a statement on the people, because I'm including ourselves in that.
Yeah, it's just a statement on this.
Yeah, it's not exactly the people's fault when we are raised in such an environment.
Mm-hmm.
What else were we thinking about the built environment? So inside all the time, push from point A to point B on a tight schedule.
Yeah.
Not much time to explore, feel authentic things, all that kind of stuff.
Well, my main idea was that people don't exercise, or like you have to make a real effort to. And I think that just kind of looped back to what I was just saying about mental health and the physical health, because it's like, no, it's kind of like no wonder people are feeling like there's an increase in
unrest, anxiety.
Yeah, because people just aren't moving, or they're not, like, to get food, you don't have to put out any calories to get food.
Oh yeah, of course.
You have to put out no energy, you just
Too easy.
pick it up. And things are too easy. People aren't challenged, they're looking for other challenges.
Mm-hmm.
And they might even invent them, and they can become real. Like,
yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking about that last year a lot, because when we talk about the convenience of, let's just, as a sweeping statement, say the Western or the global North, pretty much everything is easy and everything is safe.
Yeah, so we just
For
want
most of us.
adventure. We want some kind of challenge.
Some kind of challenge.
It often manifests in being like, in just like kind of developing a mental illness, and then it will become real. Like, you'll get unbalanced.
You think it into existence.
Yeah.
And this gets back into talking about developing countries versus really developed ones, where the objectively developing or developed countries should be much happier because child mortality is down and food security is up and lifespans are up and all that kind of thing. But since happiness is kind of always relative, the average person here probably doesn't feel that much happier than the average person elsewhere.
Yep.
So I guess a counter to that would be a sense of appreciation, gratefulness, mindfulness, and adventure as well.
Yeah, just more opportunities for adventure. On Christmas, my dad, we were on our way to turkey dinner, and he went in our SUV, decided to go four-wheeling.
Ooh.
And it literally terrified me. But I was like, this is the first time I've been genuinely scared for my life in, like, years.
Good for you.
So I was like...
Ever since the 2012 Mayan apocalypse.
Yep, pretty
Spontaneity.
much. Yeah, like, it just doesn't
Breaking
happen.
the routines. These are important things.
Yeah.
Are there some, since we have just listed here feedback loops?
Yeah.
Do we want to mention any specific? Because I'm now thinking of like the economy. How does that keep us in a state where we're not exactly happy or peaceful or content in our own mental health?
Well, at least with, I think I know what you mean. It's just like the need for constant growth. Is that what you're talking about?
No.
No. Okay. I don't know what you mean then.
Well, I'm just tossing out the idea of a Wall-E style economic advertising, marketing, and consumerist bombardment of products which combine to repress our happiness. For instance, well, let's say the pharmaceutical industry.
Okay. I see what you mean, though.
Yes.
It's just like it's like...
I'm talking about when people say, we get sold this to cure this, but really, then we have to... It's kind of like the... there was an old lady who swallowed a...
Yes.
A what?
Swallowed a fly.
Yeah, she swallowed a fly, but then she had to swallow the frog to catch the fly. Then she had to swallow the cat to catch the frog. So it's...
Yeah,
kind of
I
thinking,
know what you mean.
You know what I mean?
So it's just like...
Can we think of any examples, though, so I'm not just sounding crazy?
I feel like just even selling as fast food, constantly advertised, like on TV, it's like, oh, this new burger, and you eat it, but then like heart disease is up. So then I think this is really big in the States. People have a ton of drugs they take to like prevent heart disease.
Well, we mentioned escapism for technology, but what about escapism through drug use, prescriptions?
Yeah, and even just making those more readily available, which I think they are now.
Increases reliance,
then it kind of suppresses creativity. It suppresses the desire for creativity, but when that's suppressed, then people are just going to be less creative, less innovative, which isn't good in society. We want people to be more thoughtful, more philosophical, read more, get more educated. That way I feel like the world's problems would be solved more easily than they currently are being solved.
You mean by increasing I don't want to sound really awful, but not increasing the labor force, but increasing the potential bank of ideas? Yeah. That's a really interesting
I feel like the
topic.
current, like, if you're working just like a really, like just a standard job, any job. You're working for like 8 hours a day, and before you go to work, when you go home, you don't feel like working on something you're really passionate about. You just feel like kind of getting whatever done and then watching TV. It's my experience from even just working a summer job. It's like you come home and say, I don't really want to work on like podcast. I don't really want to go for a run. And just those little things. It's like if I had that time to myself or like felt motivated and didn't have, if I was bored more often, then I probably would be more productive.
So we mentioned fast food and the drug industry, but there's also Netflix, programming, things like that.
Yeah.
Which are certainly key players.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking, because you just got Disney Plus.
I did.
And they're coming out with original programming
mm-hmm.
and things, and we were wondering, I think we knew the answer, but if Netflix and Disney and Amazon through Amazon Prime Video had access to the vast data from like Google,
mm-hmm.
like the of our search histories and trends and things like that, and they definitely do, and that definitely feeds into the shows that they're creating.
Yeah, because the shows is like, whoa, this is like awesome, like Stranger Things that we were talking about, because like there was a trend in people listening to 80s music and dressing kind of 80s vibes, and they're like, whoa, I love this is so me, and they watch it. And this is kind of off topic, but I went onto Netflix yesterday, and like a massive super loud advertisement for Stranger Things popped up, and I just wanted it off, so I just clicked on like in like my recently watched, so like it was a series I was watching.
Mm-hmm.
I just clicked on it and didn't even think about it because I just wanted that advertisement off.
Yeah.
And then I just watched the full episode. They're only like 15-minute episodes, but I was just like, why did I just do that? I just went on to check something else, and then I just watched this whole episode.
It's the powers that may be keeping us down.
Yeah.
Brave New World.
Yes. Read that book if you're interested in anything we're talking about today.
Sure.
What I meant by negative feedback loops, though, in this list was something to do with the environment, because that's something I often think about with mental health, is our disconnect from nature. So it's like people are more disconnected from the land because they don't have to farm, they don't have to walk to work even, so they don't care about it, and then that allows it to be degraded. But then when you go on the news or you go outside and you're like, oh, there's only like one tree, or like, oh, there's a bunch of forest fires, then it makes you
we don't always think that consciously
more.
But subconsciously we
yeah
definitely notice an issue.
Yeah, and I think just the increase in natural disasters is going to really feed this feedback loop, and people are going to start like kind of disconnecting more and more, because it's like it's bad things are happening, and that allows the bad things to happen, because no one's like actively opposing the forces that are destroying nature.
24-hour news cycle as well.
Yeah, I think that kind of is a segue into the last one, but did you have anything else to say about the built environment?
Yes.
Okay.
Just a general lack of aesthetic appreciation.
Okay.
Really can't be overstated, because it's exactly what you were just saying about nature, actually, because nature has, since we ourselves are natural beings, this is going to sound really strange, but since we ourselves are natural beings, the things that we like the look of and the feel of, people talk about biophilia, we have a natural inclination towards nature.
Yeah, we like the touch of moss.
And the look of trees. Touch of moss, that's the name of this episode. And the look of trees, but since we live in such a geometric, sharp, cube-like, robotic, impersonal, office block kind of world, we struggle.
Yeah.
Remember when I was getting really upset because I was like, I think I texted you over the summer, like, I'm getting tired of food in boxes.
Yeah.
It's exactly that. Not just our food is in boxes, but we're in boxes. Everything comes in boxes.
Yeah.
And it can be really, really, really difficult.
Hard on you, yeah. And it's like if you can't easily escape to nature, which not many people can.
Nature Bob.
Yeah, you can't naturally.
You can't nature Bob. You can't be like SpongeBob in the episode where he gets so tired of just working in the Krusty Krab and flipping the patties. And he says, enough's enough. He rips off his little square suit, jumps out the window,
goes to live with the jellyfish.
Goes to run with the jellies.
Yeah.
That's exactly what
But like we can't do that. We don't have a jellyfish farm right down the street. So it's like people go to technology, or they just kind of, it manifests in poor mental health.
Yeah.
And then poor physical health, and then people are sedated and they're not trying to find solutions because it's hard to think of solutions, because that kind of makes you feel really overwhelmed whenever I try to think like, what can we do to make there be like apartment buildings where people can like all live together in community, in harmony with nature. Like it's big concepts to think of, so we can't just think about, oh, we just need more trees. It's like, we need to get rid of cars, we need to change the whole agricultural system. This is like, it's big thinking,
big stuff.
Anyway.
I also want to mention, you talked about the difficulty of someone, let's say, working full-time. It's like, how are you supposed to use your spare time, because it's so difficult, and people will always say we're overworked, underpaid, minimum wage keeps us down. But I think there's kind of a victim complex growing among the lower class people, including myself in that.
Yeah.
And students especially. There's a lot of woe is us, woe is me.
Yeah, and I don't know what people are thinking used to happen, but it's like our working days are shorter, I'm pretty sure.
No, I think they're longer. But my thinking is just, even if everything is worse now, so what? Just be better is what I say.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No,
It's probably not a good way to increase someone's mental health, though.
No, I don't think that is, but I know what you mean. It's kind of hard to think of. It's like, why is everything worse? Things are more convenient. Like, we don't have to go hunting for our food. We don't have to, all we have to do is go to work and basically do something that we know exactly how to do every day.
Right. I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding of responsibility.
Okay.
I was reading on Reddit a while ago, and I showed you the post. It was a subreddit called A Boring Dystopia, which basically highlights everyday things which, when you think about them, are supposed to indicate that we're in a really bad economic and social state.
Oh, okay.
We're in a dystopia. So it was one of those little memes or like posts, like, I don't know if it's called a meme. It's like an image with words on it.
Okay.
And it said, it was just talking about like hustle and grind culture. Like,
it's like you can build an empire between the hours of 6 p.m. and...
Yeah, it was like, stop complaining about your full-time job. You can build an empire between the hours of 6 p.m. and 12 midnight or something.
Yeah.
And I agree with that.
I do as well.
The people in the comments were not a fan of this. I think it's because everyone likes to play it's an excuse to just say, no, I can't do that. It's impossible. People find excuses, basically.
Yeah.
And anyway, the comment which I found was really profound in its summing up of the mood that I'm trying to talk about. Is someone said, what if I don't want to build an empire? All I want to do is live and have fun with my friends or something. And I was just thinking, well, you don't get to do that. Like, that's not how life is. That's not how the world works.
No, it really isn't. Because I had a while where I was like, I don't want to like have to solve climate change.
You know, I don't want to have to work hard.
I just want to have a family and live in a little farmhouse and have chickens. And it's like...
You don't get to do that.
No.
That's not how it is.
Because we're so fortunate that we have the capacity to like think, learn.
Yeah, you were saying that yesterday. Like, we're really grateful, or you were saying you're really grateful that you can go to school, learn a lot, have agency to do whatever you want, start whatever project you want. We really have the world at our feet, and it's just because of luck of where we're born, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, we really need to appreciate that and be like, if that means I don't get to have a family.
Well,
yes.
If it means I have to work 9 hours a day, oh well. Yeah. I'm not in risk of dying or anything like that.
But it's hard I understand where people are coming from, because I
don't.
I've experienced but I just want to, like, other people got to just have a family and not have to worry about these big issues.
That's what everyone talks about. It's just how easy it was for people in other generations in the years before us.
Yeah.
And they use that as an excuse for, it's like, well, they were paid this much and they didn't need a college degree and wow.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, well, so what if it's harder now?
Yeah,
people use that as an excuse.
You can't use it as an excuse.
But people do, and they say, well, that's why I'm not succeeding economically, financially, or in my mental health or something.
Mm-hmm.
And to those people, I would say, what about the people who are succeeding now, who came from much less than you?
Yeah.
Because there are tons of people who were way less fortunate than me and you, who are succeeding economically or mentally or intellectually or whatever it may be. So there's really no excuse.
No, there isn't. And I feel like we need to just realize
it's a victim
that,
complex, which I think is really pervasive, and it's really destructive, especially among young people.
I think it's the reason why such issues as climate change, as mental health epidemics, as even like drug epidemics are rising, because there's no one like
people are just
too
defeatist about these things way too often. Anyway, moving on. Speed. Acceleration. The hockey stick curve.
Yes, I think if Aaron ever gets a tattoo, it will be the hockey stick curve.
Well, I'm kind of excited to talk about this because this is the thing that I think is the biggest issue in the world today. Yeah,
we are living in this like
crazy period time of accelerating everything.
Yes.
And it's so vague, but it's really includes everything.
Yeah.
It's not vague, it's all inclusive.
Yes.
That's why it sounds vague. Because when we say acceleration, we mean technologically, socially, environmentally, economically, something else, artistically.
Yeah.
Everything is just being called into question. Every age-old concept, every old tradition
is being just like torn apart.
Yes.
Which we're not saying this is like a bad thing.
No. We're just saying that it's not easy on the modern mind to live in a postmodern intellectual academic arena.
Yes.
I think the best way to do this is let's just list some things
that are crazy.
Which are crazy new, which didn't exist 60 years ago.
We could even do like 20 years ago.
No, let's do 60. Let's do like 40 or 30. Streaming.
Climate change.
24-hour news.
Branding on clothing.
Globalization. I beat you.
You did beat me.
But yeah, there's just all these crazy new things which are already tenets of society.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not just new things which are on the fringe of society or that we're on the frontier of. Like, these are things which are now ingrained already.
Yeah.
I mean, cars didn't exist 100 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe they did, but I mean, it's... Yeah.
Like, it's crazy. And we were talking yesterday about how people, they're trying to compare it to the ball and stick. And they're like, well, the hip new toy back 50 years ago, but it's like, this wasn't changing people's lives as much as the current things are.
Virtual reality.
Yeah. That's like insane.
Yeah. I mean, what you're saying is that people have always responded to this argument by saying, well, you know, times are always changing.
Yeah.
But these times are changing a lot.
And it's changing people's physiological makeup.
Like
how
we
they
were
sleep,
saying the other day, we still don't even know if cell phones cause cancer.
Yeah.
Like, they might. We wouldn't know.
No.
It hasn't been long enough.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's crazy. And it's like, I can't imagine being over the age of 30 today.
Okay.
Because I was saying this earlier.
It's ancient.
No, that's not what I mean. But can you imagine being like, because people are like, why don't you know how to use a cell phone? Like, just being constantly being bombarded with, well, you're dumb, you're not like hip.
Yeah.
And like back 40 years ago, being like, you're not hip, it's like you didn't know what the most recent song was. But now it's like you don't know how to use these things that are completely ingrained in society.
Integral to survival, basically.
Yeah. And it's just, that would suck. That'd be so bad on your head.
I guess you think about it as if someone was in jail for 40 years or something, and they're coming out and they're like, what on earth? And we'd have a lot of sympathy for that person. But the person who wasn't in jail for some reason, they don't receive any kind of sympathy. All they receive is like derision. Mm-hmm. Because there's not exactly a lot of respect your elders around today. No. It's just a lot of
memes.
Be mean, make fun of your elders because they don't understand Fortnite or something.
Yeah. And
also because apparently they had it so much easier economically is what everyone now just says.
Yeah.
I think it's trash. So not just all these new things, but a lot of renewed attention to older things. So really traditional concepts which are being examined and scrutinized.
Yes. That's kind of what I was trying to get at, is like these people who are now being just completely like bombarded with new technology being put down, they kind of might, this is why we're seeing the rise of maybe more extreme views, because people are kind of digging their heels into their
So just let's say it's about, what do you mean extreme views? Give some examples.
Like white supremacy.
Yeah.
Because it's just like,
a lot of these things
people are like, well,
racial or religious based or sex based. Yeah.
So people are like digging into their values, and like I think holding on to your values to an extent are good, but not if it's racist.
I mean, it's
but,
really, really, it's difficult. That's a difficult conversation because,
yeah,
of course, we say such views are deplorable.
Yeah.
But I mean, people were raised with such views until about 1900.
Yeah.
Like, the
So
West was
still
solidly racist, sexist, women couldn't vote. And those are all obviously really good developments which have happened since.
Yeah.
But it's just happened so quickly. Like, there are people who were still alive when women couldn't vote.
Yeah.
I think
so.
it was like 1910s, right?
Yeah. Maybe not, but...
It's crazy.
Yeah. So it's just hard to... It's not that we're, like, saying, oh, yeah, this is good. But
We're not saying those
like,
viewpoints are good. We're saying, but we have to...
In, like, 50 years, we're going to look back on this period and be like, it must just... Like, that was a hard time to live in. Maybe not 50 years. Maybe, like, 100 or 200 years. Look back on this period and be like...
Because we were caught in the flux.
Yeah, so people are living here...
And it's pulling our minds apart from all different angles.
Yes.
All the age-old traditions on which society was built, or a lot of them, are now being called into question.
Mm-hmm.
Postmodernism of every kind of thought process.
Yeah.
Things like masculinity, femininity.
Yeah.
Those were, like, fixed for hundreds of years.
And people are just starting
and
to,
now it's all changing.
Yeah, so that's why people are...
Things like environmental notions, it was always... Anthropocentric. It was always, what can we do to better our own economics?
Yeah, so just every single part of people's brains, there's just a complete paradigm shift that's being required of them. It's not easy, especially when people aren't grounded. Like, I don't think being grounded in religion is bad. I think it's kind of necessary.
Some kind of spiritual grounding.
Yeah, but
some
people...
kind of ontological grounding, I would say.
On top of all of these changes, people are also, for some reason, just abandoning their, like, foundations, their religious beliefs on top of that, which I understand to an extent maybe, but, like, it's just not good. And people are like, crap, there's these random, like, minimalism is what we were talking about. People are like, well, I need to identify with something.
So I call myself a capital M minimalist, or a capital V vegan, or a capital Z zero waster, or a capital W white supremacist. People need something to put in their own conscious Instagram bio, in their mind. It's like, how do I describe myself? What is my label? To what group do I belong? Because the traditional ones don't exist anymore.
Yes.
In a lot of ways.
So that's speed.
That's speed. Nothing feels real. Nothing feels definite. Everything goes by so quickly. We don't know. We mentioned 24-hour news. Mm-hmm. I mean, it seems bad now, but when deep fakes,
what's that?
You know, like the fake videos where it looks like Obama's saying something, with like computer, basically editing videos.
Yes.
When that becomes indistinguishable from real footage, oh boy. Yeah.
Because we were talking the other day on the podcast about, like, if you wanted to believe the earth was flat, you could find articles and interviews and you could back that up. So it's like, I can't even just, like, go to school, you learn something, you don't know that that's real. Yeah. Well, like, it is, but you don't know that it is because you have...
Picture a world where you go on the news and you just have no idea what is real at all, and maybe every news site is reporting different things. Like like right now, let's say Fox and CNN are reporting the same things, just with different spins, different biases, different headlines, but they could be reporting completely different accounts of events.
Yes.
So you don't know what is real. Let's say augmented reality becomes really big. Let's say virtual reality becomes really big, and we live in an Inception-style world of layers of
So I wonder what
dreams.
This is doing to people's mental health.
Yeah, exactly. Can you imagine trying to retain any sense of fixity and mental stability through such a world? I can't. But we're not too dissimilar from that now.
Yeah, and so that's why I feel like big issues like climate change, it's hard to focus on because our brains are just being pulled in a million different directions, and it's hard to be like, well, this is the biggest issue. We need to focus on this and devote all of our resources, all of our attention to it. It's easier to say, well, we'll just focus on all these other little issues. Like, it's hard to, like,
let's talk about globalization.
Yeah.
Because that's another huge one, in that just from a really superficial perspective, that person who grew up in the 1930s only eating, let's say they're from a small town in the Netherlands, only eating traditional Dutch cuisine, now goes to the supermarket 5 minutes away and they can pick up
Bananas.
Asian food and bananas at any time of the year, you know,
And a
mix it all
spice
together
mix.
and a spice mix. Like, it's crazy. Not saying that this is good or bad, not making any kind of
But it's just,
qualitative judgments.
it'd be hard to focus on,
Just saying what a rapid change it's been so quickly.
and
And it's such a big deal. And not just, obviously, with food, but we live in multicultural societies for the first time.
yeah, so someone who grew up in a tiny village now being exposed to like
All different.
kind of new cultures,
Yeah.
new types of people, new like senses of humor. It's just like, it's hard.
It's a crazy world.
Yeah, and I think in like 100 years we're gonna look back on this period and be like, not that I'll be alive in 100 years, let's live
Maybe.
to 120.
Freeze
Never
it.
know.
Freeze yourself.
They'll look back on this period and be like, ooh, those poor people.
Yeah,
like,
that's
how did
why
they not, like, I see.
I'm not surprised that mental health was a big issue then.
Yes. So that's just what we're saying, is that this is kind of a hard time, and
And this is why we think that simple and comfortable ideologies are on the rise.
yes.
Because people want some kind of sense of stability.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way, or not in a way, in a very, you can really draw the line directly from all this craziness to the rise of extreme far-right movements, which are about safety. I feel comfortable because I'm among people who look like me.
Yeah.
And this is really popular rhetoric through history whenever things get too wild.
Yeah.
So that's where that comes from.
Yes.
And things like, just, I'm going to simplify every news that comes at me by just calling it fake news.
Yeah.
I'm going to ignore this whole climate change problem by just saying it's a hoax. It's much easier to do that
Mm-hmm.
rather than having to expose ourselves to the truth, which is so big
Yes.
and coming from all angles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
that's mental health
yes, and
today. Do we have any words of wisdom, any kind of solutions?
I think simplicity is important.
Finding simplicity any way you can,
Yeah.
as long as it isn't ethically or politically. Don't just try and simplify in those.
No, I feel like just
arenas.
physically, if you simplify, like maybe focus on the things that you enjoy and maybe doing them instead
Yeah.
of just consuming media about them.
Yeah.
It's kind of, yeah.
I like to observe a lot of, well, you know, everyone has role models, so like successful people who I look up to,
Mhm.
and a lot of them, a common theme is that they talk about having a rock or something which is their tether through all the craziness, and
Mhm.
historically, obviously, it's been religion.
Yeah.
So if that's you, then indulge in
Focus
that.
on that,
You know,
yeah.
focus in that, grow in your faith or your spiritual sense or something. Because I do think even for a-religious people or atheists, some kind of spiritual ontological grounding is really important, even if it's just a sense of, I'm here to protect and preserve nature.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that, something bigger than yourself is so important to tether yourself to.
Yeah, because it
So
could be
otherwise
you're
you'll be
like,
blown away.
yeah, that's important.
Yeah. Or it could even be routine, meditation.
It could be capital M minimalism.
Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson says that his rock is exercise.
Yeah.
So he wakes up at 4 every day.
Oh my.
He pumps iron, and that's his stability.
Ah,
Everyone needs stability of some
Yes.
sort.
so find something that you can.
What's yours?
What's my faith?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't imagine living without that. It'd be kind of crazy to be like, oh yeah, we're just here alone. There's no God. There's nothing. Like, no hope.
Nice.
Yeah, I can't imagine. So find something that gives you hope. Be it religion, be it a rock. The rock.
The Rock. If you want to find comfort, stability, fixity, and solace in Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's,
I don't know if that's a
life.
good message to send.
that's what I do.
Okay. The next episode will be a bit of a specific examination of the built environment, focusing on vehicles.
Ooh, we're doing the automobile and the car episode.
Mm-hmm.
Travel, transport, highways, roads, trains.
Yes. Globalization.
Small world.
Yes.
Sweet.
Cool.
You can find us on Instagram at @the_environmental.
We're also on SoundCloud, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts.
New episodes every Monday. Have a great day.